So this would have been an interview regarding Sue Novak speaking to Mr. Percy about putting Holly Zimdahl on leave. And it also was about, if you could go scroll back up to question 1, please. Yep. So yeah, speaking about any evidence or any information that he was aware of regarding Holly Zimdahl from Sue Novak.
Okay, and I appreciate that. And since we've gone over this chronological log, which is always extremely helpful, I always have to thank the department for that. We know that this tip here from Sue Novak about Mr. Percy came extraneous to the Sue Novak investigation, and in fact, you learned about that into your investigation into the lower level employees, right?
Correct.
Okay, and this is also because this is the first time that you had talked to Doug Percy or interviewed Doug Percy with respect to the escape, right?
Correct.
Okay, and so this is 5 weeks after approximately?
What was the date? 5/20? Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, I believe so. Yeah.
Okay, and at this time, you indicated to well, I guess I want to back up from that. But so you had learned about this. That's, I guess my question is, how many times prior to this had you interviewed Sue Novak with regard to the investigation, escape?
I know Miss Novak was interviewed a couple times as a witness.
Okay.
I believe, I don't recall how many. I know, or I believe that the other team that we talked about, the Joseph Runke and Kelly Steiner, I believe they may have interviewed her at least once. So I don't recall specifically how many times that she was interviewed prior as a witness.
So 3 is what it sounds like you recall, and possibly more. Is that fair?
Well, it could be. I don't recall specifically.
Okay.
I know. Yeah, I would say 2 maybe at the very least, but like I said, I don't recall.
Now, at some time, based on these other interviews that you did, you also found out that there was apparently some facts related to Sue Novak regarding the fence. Is that fair to say?
Sorry, can you repeat that? There were some facts.
Yeah, right. So the question is that you found out, I guess, allegations that Sue Novak knew something about the condition of the stun fence prior to the escape. Is that fair?
That's fair.
Okay. And you also learned that Sue Novak alleged that she had she had informed Doug Percy about Holly Zimdahl prior to the escape, prior to your investigation at Sue Novak, right?
Yes, that's what Sue Novak told us. Yes.
Okay, and did you talk to, or you gave that information to Christy Preston, right?
Correct.
Okay, did you
I
talk
believe so. Yes, I would have had that conversation with her.
and you talked to Christy Preston about your discussions with just excuse me 1 second. I've got a pet emergency. I'll be right back. One second. I'm sorry, 2 dogs and 1 bone. I'm sure you can do the math. Okay. So I'm sorry. I was asking you that you talked to Christy Preston about Sue Novak's allegations into Doug Percy prior to talking to Doug Percy the first time, right?
I don't recall talking to Chrissy prior to the first time. I do have recollection of a conversation prior to the second, after this one, prior to the second.
Okay, so you went straight to Mr. Percy the first time and told him that on your own without talking to Christy Preston about what the allegations against him from Ms. Novak, right?
There may have been. I don't recall. I don't know why I went to Mr. Percy second. I don't remember offhand the information that I had at the time. There may have been, there may not have been. I really do not recall.
Okay, but it's fair to say that the second thing you did in the Novak investigation was investigate her allegations into Doug Percy, right?
It's fair to say that I interviewed Doug Percy second in the investigation based on information that I had.
Were you surprised that you didn't receive a 15807 into Doug Percy after your interviews with him?
Not. I really don't like look too far into all these things. I don't know the conversations that happen above my level. Like, they talk about what things that are going on and what's happening, and I didn't really have an opinion. I passed the information that I needed to on, and that was it.
Appreciate that. So just for distinction's sake, were you surprised at getting a 15807 into Sue Novak after sending your investigation summaries to Christy Preston?
Again, it was the same thing. I whatever investigations that I was assigned, I was going to do. I didn't hold any weight or opinion as to who should be under investigation and who shouldn't. I was just there to investigate.
Okay. Okay, and then based on your investigation that you went over with Mr. Mullenbach, did you determine who at Columbia was responsible for the fence?
With Mr. Mullenbach?
Right, we just went over it extensively, so I don't want to do it again. That's what I'm trying to signal there. Sorry.
Deputy Warden Weber said that between himself and Warden Novak, they were both in charge of overseeing building and grounds supervisor, if that's what you're referring to.
Okay, and but the building and grounds supervisor was the person who was responsible for the condition of the fence, right?
It was probably in their post orders or in their job duties. Yes, the fence would have been the primary responsibility of the building and grounds supervisor. Yeah, would have been like the fence. Yes.
Okay. Now, do you, in your knowledge and experience as a captain, have you ever handled a budget for a maximum security prison?
I've not.
Okay. So are you aware of whether or not the warden at Columbia could have replaced the fence at the stun fence at Columbia within her budget?
I have no idea.
Okay. And when did you learn at all when Sue Novak learned that there was an issue with the stun fence, or sorry, the razor wire fence alarm?
I believe that Miss Novak stated that she learned of it sometime into becoming a warden.
Now, just be careful. The stun fence or the stun fence location or the razor wire alarm?
Oh, I don't recall.
Okay. Now, you investigated this issue with the notification, right?
With the notification. notificate. I don't know what you mean.
So there is an issue with notification of certain Department of Correction offices as to who exactly escaped from the institution.
Correct.
Okay. And you saw on there that the top bullet point in there was the number of views on social media. Did you call that?
Yes.
Okay. Why is that significant?
I didn't draft that document, but I
Mhm.
would imagine that it's significant because of the impact that it could have had on the public.
Okay. And again, just because that's what I want to be clear, did you, from your investigation, did Novak know that the alarms weren't working before the escape? This is the alarms on the razor wire fence.
I would have to look at what her response was. I'm sure I asked about it, but I don't recall exactly what her response was.
Okay, I got it. Now, in your experience as a captain, at a I guess a maximum security institution, ultimately, is that right?
Medium.
Medium. Okay. Do you is it your understanding that an accusation by an inmate who is under investigation is enough to remove an employee from their position?
I'm going to object to relevance and speculation. It's fact specific.
Okay, I'm not sure. What was the question again, please?
Okay, it's an accusation by an inmate under investigation enough to remove an employee.
Okay, Mr. Sonnenberg, have you been in such a position where you would make such a decision?
I have not.
Okay, then we're not going to do that.
Oh, okay. Well, that's clear. So you wouldn't you had never been in a position to yourself make the decision of whether or not to put an employee out on investigative leave. Is that right?
Objection to relevance.
I'll allow. Go ahead.
So answer?
Yes, please.
Yes, please. Go ahead.
Okay. No, I've never been in that position to do that.
Okay. Did you ever mention that when you were asked to investigate Warden Novak?
Most likely not. No.
No, you didn't say, hey, because remember, you touted to us your experience on the team, how you had the most experience on the team. Did you ever mention to Chrissy Preston that, hey, I've only been a captain. I don't really know how to do the warden's job. How am I supposed to investigate a warden?
I'm going to object to relevance, and it's a bit badgering.
Okay, I do think you're badgering, and I believe that Mr. Sonnenberg's testimony was that he wasn't responsible for determining what this, whether or not people had violated rules. He was just told to investigate. And then he brought that information to other people who decided what was going to happen. So at this point, I don't see the relevance of this, and we're going to stop. Go ahead. Your question, please.
Yeah, I do. Thank you. So, because I'm not clear if we've got an answer, because the inmate TR that we're talking about, he was under investigation at the time that he made this accusation against the employee, right?
I would have had no part of the investigation, and I don't recall confirming if there was or wasn't one. But that's
we just read a bunch of statements that said
correct.
that.
Yeah. Yep. According to Captain Pitson, yeah, he was under investigation.
Okay. Do you believe that to be true or something else?
I don't see any reason why Captain Pitson would lie, so I assume that it's true.
Okay. Keeping that in mind, so is an accusation, I mean, and I guess that's to be clear, in your knowledge and experience about how many accusations are made, are accusations against staff a frequent or infrequent occurrence at maximum security prison?
I'm going to object to relevance. What's relevant are the facts of this case.
Okay. Okay. Do you have any such information? Do you have background sufficient to answer that question, Mr. Sonnenberg?
I do not.
Okay. Move on, please.
Right. And you didn't have that when you were investigating Sue Novak either, right?
Knowledge as to putting people on leave? No, I did not.
No, okay. Or in how frequently inmates make accusations against staff members?
Not in a maximum security prison, no.
No, okay. Or how frequently they do that when they're under investigation themselves?
I've never worked in a maximum security prison.
Okay. And do you believe Christy Preston knew you've never worked at a maximum security prison when you were an investigator?
Object to relevance.
Okay, I think at this point, I've told you, Mr. Cross, I don't see how this is helpful. He has testified he did not make these decisions. So you've already made the point, he doesn't have that
Just asking the
background.
questions. Decisions
And
are
my position is that it's not relevant anymore because he's already told us he doesn't make that decision. And it's up to other people. He brings the information to other people, they make the decision. Hopefully they have the background. Let's move on.
great. Well, I see we're at even 12:30. I was gonna say 12:39. Just give me 1 second. I will text my client. I think I'm within my budget here, and hopefully we can be done. Thank you. If I can be indulged, just a brief questions here.
Go ahead. We're still on
Thank
the
you.
record.
Great. So, was Mr. Garceau in the working in that same room with you and Mr. Fuchs?
Yes.
Okay. And the subject of the investigations, are those confidential or something else?
This investigations are during the investigation are confidential.
Okay. And Mr. Fuchs wasn't participating in the investigation, right?
I don't believe he may have been interviewed. I don't recall. You'd have to look at my documents.
Okay. And what about Mr. Garceau? Was he participating in the investigation?
Same thing. I don't recall if he was interviewed or not for any reason. But you'd have to check the documents on that.
Okay. Would it be problematic for Mr. Fuchs to be both the subject of an interview and also working in the same room as you while you're conducting the investigation based on your knowledge and training as an investigator?
I'm going to object to relevance, and it also calls for speculation.
All right. I'm going to allow it. I don't see where we're going with this. Go ahead.
He wouldn't have, you mentioned subject, he would have been a witness to something, and depending on what he was interviewed for, it might have just been his response, or like there's a lot of things that that could be, but at the time I didn't see any issues with it. No, like I don't even know if he was part of the investigation.
Okay, but it's fair to say that he had access to knowledge of the confidential investigation summaries because you were talking to Christian Preston about it in the same room as him, right?
Object to relevance.
I'll allow. Go ahead.
I can't speak to what Mr. Garceau may have heard, but yes, he was in the same room while discussions were happening.
Great, thank you so much. No more questions.
All right, redirect Mr. Mr. Mullenbach.
I don't have anything based on that, Judge.
All right, well, thank you so much, Mr. Soneberg, and I think you'll be free to go now. And
Did I
you can-
recross my recross? No, okay.
I hope not. All right, so thank you, Mr. Soneberg. Have
Thank
a
you.
good day.
You too.
Thank
Thank
you.
Thank you.
All right, so we are at 12:34, half an hour for lunch, and then we come back with somebody else. Is that good?
Thank
Mr.
you.
Cross?
Good.
Yes.
That works? Okay, so Mr. Mullenbuck, who are you calling after lunch?
Right now, the plan is Louis Bixler.
Okay, so we will come back at 1:10. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Put
Bye.
yourself and stop.